My name is Jonas, and I'm married to Linda. I'm 36 years old, and she's 34. We've been married for 8 years, but lately, our marriage has started to feel like a constant downhill slope. Linda is a beautiful woman. She's never had any trouble getting attention or admiration from the men around her. I'm not unremarkable either. I'm successful in my profession, work out regularly, and often hear that I look good. But I've always had difficulty standing my ground when it comes to issues that bother me in our relationship. I don't quite know why. Maybe it's a combination of conflict avoidance and an internal belief that, as a man, I must step up and be understanding. The problems have slowly built up. It started with small things that Linda commented on. A few years ago, she complained that I wasn't as good as she hoped when it came to sexual performance. She used to express it casually, more like a slightly sarcastic remark or as a joke. You can't even last 5 minutes, or God, that wasn't much to cheer about tonight. At first, I tried to laugh it off, thinking she might just be frustrated and that I could try harder. But as her comments became more persistent and hurtful, it began to gnaw at me. It wasn't just in the bedroom that she teased me. She could mock me for not earning as much as other men, despite the fact that I actually have a very good salary. I have a job that requires me to work a lot, but I'm hardly poor. Occasionally, Linda would say that her friends have men who make more money, and she joked that maybe she should find a more lucrative partner. I'm just kidding, she'd say when I protested. But the tone and the look she gave me made it feel anything but a joke. It felt more like a form of belittlement, a display of power. I know that Linda easily gets attention. She's beautiful, social, and charismatic. Many men would undoubtedly be interested in her. She's aware of this and sometimes uses it as a threat. "Do you think I can't find someone better than you?" she might say, then laugh as if it were a funny joke. I tried to explain to her that it hurt me, but she dismissed it every time. "But God, you need to have some humor." Or, "Relax, it's just a joke." I'm not a person who usually argues in public. I avoid quarrels, but internally I've long been angry and sad. It feels like I've gradually lost my own self-esteem through all her constant jabs about my ability in bed, my size, how quickly I climax when we're intimate, how I don't give her enough pleasure. I've tried talking to her about this calmly several times, but it usually just leads to her thinking I'm ridiculous for getting upset over a little teasing. Even when it comes to household chores, she seizes every opportunity to point out how I don't do things right. I wash dishes, do laundry, and fix things when I can, but she always finds some detail to complain about. Additionally, she constantly brings up money, how I should get a bigger bonus, how real men negotiate higher salaries, and that a friend's husband surely makes twice as much. Meanwhile, she conveniently forgets that I already pay for most of the household expenses, that I buy her favorite clothes, and that she leads a life without having to work. Despite all this, I tried to continue presenting the marriage as normal outwardly. I have a friend, Robin, whom I occasionally confided in, but I never shared all the details. Just hinted that Linda can be annoying sometimes. Robin is married to Emily, and they have a stable and secure relationship. I've seen how they communicate, how they support each other, and I realize more and more what I myself am missing. The turning point. The turning point for me came during a dinner we had not too long ago when we hosted a couple of our friends. Linda was worse than ever that evening. She had a couple of glasses of wine and became very outspoken. She commented on everything I did. For example, when I tried to pour wine for one of the guests, she said, "Be careful not to spill it over the table. You're not always so steady." When I shared a funny memory, she took over the story and then added a comment about how I used to be so cowardly or so clumsy. She also made an old joke about my little equipment, which made my face bright red and left me feeling very humiliated. Our friends smiled awkwardly, but no one said anything to her. I suspect they were as uncomfortable as I was. After dinner, when it was time to clear the plates, I was relieved to step away from the table for a moment. I was stressed and hurt. I took a few plates to carry out to the kitchen. As I stepped into the hallway holding the plates, I heard Linda and her best friend, Sophia, talking in the living room. And what I heard made me stop in my tracks and hold my breath.
Linda, maybe I should get a lover on the side so I can finally be satisfied. Sophia. Absolutely, if he can't last long and is small in size, you should definitely do it. Michael is handsome, and I've heard from one of my girlfriends that he's pretty well endowed down there.
She laughed delightedly, and Linda joined in. Linda said,
I could make Jonas pay for the dinner and then go home with him.
Sophia sounded completely serious. Linda's laugh sounded almost a bit malicious. I froze. I knew Linda had mocked me before, but I had never heard her directly tell a friend that she was considering infidelity, and moreover, receive encouragement to actually go through with it. I felt an incredible lump in my stomach. I carefully set down the plates on a side table in the hallway. I thought that I didn't even want to set foot in the kitchen. I just wanted to leave. An enormous rage, sorrow, and shock washed over me. Did she really have no boundaries at all? I put on my jacket and shoes, walked out to the car, and drove away without saying a word. I assumed they noticed after a while because I started getting calls on my mobile. After about 20 minutes, Linda called, but I didn't answer. I wasn't sure where to go, but it felt like I didn't want to go home. The thought of sleeping under the same roof as Linda at that moment was unthinkable. After wandering the roads for a while, I ended up at my best friend Robin's house. It was very late, but I was sure he would understand if I knocked on the door. When he opened the door, I saw confusion in his eyes. Without waiting for an invitation, I blurted out, I need somewhere to sleep tonight. I can't stand it at home. Naturally, he let me in. Emily was also awake and wondered what had happened. I explained the situation as best I could without breaking down, but I was shaken. I could hardly believe that Linda had said what she had and that her friend had encouraged her. I tried to calm down, but the anger and disappointment were too great. I showed Robin and Emily the text Linda had sent. They came over that very evening. At first, there were polite questions. Honey, where are you? Come back, please. Then more desperate ones. Why did you leave? What did I do wrong? When I didn't answer them, she continued, I really don't understand why you're mad. If it's because I teased you a little, then you're oversensitive. She probably guessed that it was about her jabs, but she didn't understand that I heard the worst. If you don't come home now, I'm really going to get angry, she wrote as well. The threatening tone mixed with misunderstanding made me even more upset. I read the text out loud to Robin and Emily. They looked shocked. Emily shook her head. She's not acting okay, she said. Has she always been like this? I explained more thoroughly about Linda's constant criticism and mockery. Robin got angry. Listen, Jonas, you're one of the kindest people I know. You don't deserve this. I felt a wave of gratitude towards my friends wash over me. At the same time, I was heartbroken to realize that my marriage might not have any saving grace. We stayed up half the night talking. Emily said that this isn't normal. No partner should have to be mocked and humiliated by their beloved. She wondered if Linda might have already been unfaithful. I could hardly think the thought, but what she said to Sophia about getting a lover made me feel sick. Emily pointed out that someone who often talks about maybe being unfaithful is sometimes already doing it. Robin agreed, even though he didn't want to hurt me by being too categorical. I mostly felt empty. Finally, we went to sleep at dawn, completely exhausted. When we woke up around lunchtime, I had received a bunch of new texts from Linda. Among them, she had written that it was time to come home and that she had grown tired of acting like a child. She had also called a bunch of times, but I didn't answer. I felt a strange, calm determination. I was done with this. I couldn't take it anymore. I tried to see if there was any hope left, but I realized that even if we were to continue together, I would constantly wonder when the next humiliation would come. And the thought that she was considering infidelity, or maybe already had been, destroyed all the trust I had. I talked to Robin and Emily, explaining that I didn't want to stay in the marriage. Emily gave me a compassionate look and said, It's probably wise, Jonas. She has crossed a boundary that should be inviolable. Robin hesitated a bit and asked gently, Are you sure you could try couples therapy or something? I honestly replied that I didn't want to. I didn't feel that Linda deserved more chances. Not after how she talked about me, and clearly stated that she was considering being unfaithful. I need to get out of this, I said. I can't even trust her. I don't know if she's already been unfaithful. It feels like she's capable of anything. Shortly after, I Googled a law firm I had heard about. I called and got an appointment for the same afternoon. Robin accompanied me for support, but he sat outside while I spoke with the lawyer. I explained the situation thoroughly. I told her that I was married to Linda. We had no children, but a house, a joint bank account, and some assets. The lawyer asked why I wanted a divorce, and I openly talked about Linda's constant mockery and how I heard her talking with her friend about getting a lover. I admitted that there was no proof of infidelity, but that it didn't matter because I didn't want to stay in a marriage where I was treated this way. The lawyer nodded understandingly and said she could arrange the divorce paperwork and ensure it went as smoothly as possible. She asked if I thought Linda would cooperate, and of course, I didn't know. However, I suspected that Linda would resist out of sheer pride. The lawyer explained that the process could be prolonged if Linda refused to sign, but that the divorce would still go through eventually if one party was determined. She also mentioned that she would send the papers by mail for me to sign within a week. I felt relieved for the first time in a long while after talking to the lawyer. It was like a heavy stone had been lifted from my chest. I knew it would be tough, but now there was a concrete plan. After the meeting, I sat in the car with Robin, feeling that it was time to at least inform Linda over the phone about my decision. I didn't want to go home and see her face to face. I had no idea how she would react, but I anticipated that it wouldn't be calm. So I called her while we were parked. She answered immediately, sounding stressed and almost desperate.
Jonas, where are you? Why haven't you answered? I've been worried.
I took a deep breath and replied, "Hi, Linda. I just wanted to let you know that I've been to a lawyer. I want a divorce." There was complete silence for a few seconds. Then I heard her gasp for breath.
What do you mean now? Why now?
Her voice sounded upset. "I can't take it anymore," I said. "I've had enough of your constant mockery, your demeaning comments, and that you're clearly considering getting a lover. I heard what you said to Sophia." She fell silent again, then let out a sort of laugh, albeit hysterically.
But God, Jonas, it was just a joke. You're so oversensitive. You really think you can get divorced over that? Oh my God, what's wrong with you?
I felt my blood boil. "It's not just about what you said right then," I replied. "It's years of humiliation, of you constantly talking about how bad I am in bed, how small I am, how little I earn, and how I'm not good enough for anything. You haven't listened when I've tried to speak up, and now it's enough." What? Linda started crying, but at the same time, she tried to gush at me.
Aren't you overreacting a bit now? You know I was just joking with you and that I love you. You shouldn't take everything so seriously. Come home so we can talk.
I raised my voice to get a word in edgewise. "It's too late for that, Linda. I've already contacted a lawyer. The papers will be here in about a week." Suddenly, she started screaming.
Jonas, are you out of your mind? You're ruining everything over a little joke. I hope you realize you're making a damn mistake. Come home now.
She started ranting, and I didn't get a chance to interject. She screamed that I was a coward, that I was oversensitive, that I couldn't take a joke, and so on. Eventually, I just hung up in the middle of her outburst. My hand trembled as I put the phone in my pocket. Robin placed a hand on my shoulder and said nothing, but I understood that he thought I did the right thing. The following days were torture. Linda texted me constantly. Sometimes she was angry and wrote things like, "You damn wimp, you're not man enough to meet me." Sometimes she cried in text form, "Please come home, I'm begging you, I don't understand what you're doing to us." Sometimes she threatened, "I'm going to get revenge, you'll regret it." Sometimes she apologized. "I'm sorry I screamed, but I was shocked. Come home so we can talk." I didn't respond to any of this. I had made my decision. I could no longer be shaken. Since I still needed to go to work, I was worried that Linda would come to my workplace. And indeed, she showed up one afternoon, but I had already informed the reception and security guards. They didn't let her in. I received an angry text afterward. "How can you let them treat me like this? I'm your wife." But I ignored it. I knew that every interaction with her at this stage would result in an emotional explosion. I needed peace and quiet to get through this. When the papers from the lawyer arrived by mail, I decided to go home to the house for the first time since I left. I didn't want to go alone, so I took Robin with me for support and as a witness. I didn't know how Linda would react. I didn't call beforehand, I just showed up. When we entered the hallway, I heard Linda's voice. She came out towards us, saw Robin, and turned pale.
What are you doing here?
She snapped at me. I calmly replied, I have papers to give you. I handed her the envelope. She tore it from my hand, skimmed through the papers, and understood what it was.
Are you serious?
She screamed, and before I could respond, she slapped me. I stepped back a step, feeling my cheek burn, but I didn't retaliate. Robin stared at her with a mixture of anger and shock.
How dare you? She hissed. Do you really think you can get away with this? I've never been unfaithful, understand that.
She shook off her anger and continued,
You're a pathetic wimp, a worthless man who can't even satisfy his wife. And now you want a divorce? Who the hell do you think you are?
I tried to say something, but she interrupted.
You're so damn ridiculous. You can't even last a few minutes in bed and now you're mad because I joke about it? Adults talk things out, but you're going to run off to a damn lawyer.
I took a deep breath. If you've never been unfaithful, show me your phone. The moment I said that, I saw her complexion fade. She almost dropped the envelope.
Why would I show you my phone?
She said in a shrill voice. I saw the panic in her eyes. I said nothing more, just smiled slightly and turned around. I took a few steps toward the door. She yelled after me.
What the hell do you mean? Do you think you can accuse me of infidelity like that? You're a pig. Come back.
But I opened the door and walked out with Robin. He gave me a sympathetic look and said, Good thing I was with you. No one would have believed a slap otherwise. I nodded. I didn't even feel sad at that moment. Just empty and strangely relieved to finally see her reaction. The days that followed were filled with even more texts and emails from Linda. I still ignored them. I stayed with Robin and Emily for a while I searched for my own apartment. In the emails, Linda wrote all sorts of things. One of them read something like, Jonas, I didn't mean what I said. I was just shocked and so I don't want a divorce. You're my husband and I love you. Please come home. You can see my phone if you want. I have nothing to hide. But I didn't trust her. I felt that I had made my choice and didn't want to expose myself to more outbursts. I also thought that if she really had nothing to hide, she would have gladly shown her phone right away. Another email was longer and included things like, please, it was never seriously meant for me to get a lover. Sophia and I were just joking. You have to understand that I only tease you because I love you and want to encourage you to be better. I don't understand why you're so sensitive. You weren't like this before. You used to laugh at my jokes. Have you been brainwashed by someone? Why are you doing this to me? There were also emails with a more aggressive tone, where she wrote, I'm not going to sign any papers. You can take this to court if you want, but you won't win. You'll regret it. I'm going to tell everyone how you treated me. No one will feel sorry for you. I just sighed as I read all this. I showed these emails to Robin and Emily as well. They noted that she was desperate and that she switched between excuses, threats, and attempts at manipulation. Meanwhile, I found an apartment near my workplace. It wasn't very large, but completely adequate for me. I didn't want to bring any furniture or things from the old house. I wanted to start fresh with my own decor and without constantly being reminded of Linda. So I bought a new bed, a sofa, a kitchen table, chairs, and a few other essentials. Decorating and setting up my new home became a form of therapy for me. I felt a strange joy in building something of my own, where I didn't have to worry about someone criticizing how I did things. I placed my new bed the way I wanted it, set up the kitchen table how I wanted it, and there was no one to criticize me. It was very liberating. Meanwhile, the divorce process continued in the background. Just as the lawyer had predicted, Linda refused to cooperate. She didn't want to sign. We had a meeting with her lawyer and my lawyer, where Linda mostly sat and accused me of being cold-hearted. She demanded that we try to find some form of reconciliation. I clearly stated that I had nothing to reconcile and that I wanted a divorce. The cup had been filled long ago. Linda became furious and explained that she would do anything to prevent me from divorcing her. But the lawyers calmly explained that you can't force someone to stay in a marriage. However, she could delay the process and make it expensive and prolonged. She seemed determined to punish me by complicating things, but I felt that I had time on my side. I lived in my apartment, paid my own bills, and was mentally already out of the relationship. One evening while I was at dinner at Robin and Emily's house, Emily introduced me to her friend Anna. Anna was a warm, empathetic, and intelligent woman, also recently divorced, but for different reasons. She had a calm and friendly demeanor, and when we started talking, it felt like we understood each other immediately. We didn't discuss our respective divorces in detail, but we hinted a bit about our situations. There was a clear attraction between us, a chemistry I didn't expect to feel for a long time. But I was still married, legally speaking, and I didn't want to rush into anything. At the same time, it felt uplifting to sense that there was a life after this chaos. I left that evening with a budding sense of hope. I hadn't felt such joy in a very long time. Time went on, about half a year to be exact. The divorce dragged out due to Linda's unwillingness to cooperate. But finally, after various legal maneuvers, interrogations, and discussions between the lawyers, it was decided that the marriage would be dissolved. I never had to move back or negotiate about furniture or anything else, because we had no children who needed to stay in the house. Linda kept the house, with certain financial compensations that I was willing to make to get this over with. Honestly, I wasn't much in debt to her. We had shared assets, but she hadn't worked. The lawyers had explained that, according to law, she could try to get a larger piece of the pie, but I was so fed up with everything that I was ready to compromise. I just wanted to be free. Throughout this period, Linda continued to call and email. She wanted to meet, talk, explain herself. One moment she was angry and accusatory, the next moment desperate and pleading. Sometimes she claimed she had evidence that I had been unfaithful, which I hadn't. Sometimes she asserted that I was mentally ill and should seek therapy. I never responded. My friends and my lawyer advised me not to respond to these outbursts. I sometimes forwarded the emails to my lawyer, who kept them in case they were needed as documentation of her harassment. But other than that, I did nothing. Finally, the day came when we were to meet in family court to definitively sign off and finalize everything. It was the first time I saw Linda. Since that day, I demanded to see her phone, and she slapped me. I didn't know what to expect. When I saw her, I noticed that she looked tired and worn out, even though she had clearly tried to dress up and do her makeup carefully. She didn't have any of the obvious cocky energy she used to exude. When our eyes met, I saw a mixture of anger and sorrow in her eyes. I felt nothing but a certain emptiness, and maybe a bit of pity. I walked over, greeted formally. She said nothing, just looked away. We sat down with our lawyers. The process was purely administrative at this point. I was formally convinced that this was the best. Linda sat on the other side of the table, saying very little. When she signed the papers, it looked like she wanted to stamp the pen through the table. But she signed, then it was my turn. When I signed my name, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I stood up, thanked my lawyer, and walked out of the room. Linda tried to say something just as I was about to leave, but I didn't quite hear what. It might have been my name. Maybe something else. I didn't turn around. Outside the courthouse stood Robin waiting, just to give me a ride away and celebrate that everything was done. He handed me a paper bag with a bottle of champagne in it, and I laughed a bit awkwardly. "Thanks," I said, "but I feel more like just going home and sleeping." He beamed. "That's cool. The important thing is that you're free now." And it was true. I was free. Free from constant criticism, humiliation, insecurity, and all the frustration that had built up over the years. I knew that my future wouldn't automatically be easy, but I no longer had to tiptoe around a person who did their best to push me down. That evening, when I arrived home to my apartment, I poured myself a glass of water and sat down on my new sofa. I let my gaze wander over my new furniture, my new TV, the few decor pieces I had chosen myself, entirely without Linda's opinions. I felt a great sense of gratitude for having taken the step and for having a supportive network in Robin and Emily. And I couldn't stop thinking about Anna, Emily's friend whom I had met. Maybe something would develop in the future. Maybe not. But the feeling of hope was there, stronger than ever. I picked up my phone and saw that Linda had texted me again, despite the divorce now being finalized. "Jonas, please let me talk to you," she wrote. I sighed, deleted the message, and put the phone aside. I didn't need any more conversations with her. Everything had already been said and done. She had had countless chances to change her behavior, show remorse and respect. but she had chosen to mock and taunt until my patience was gone. I placed the glass on the table and leaned back. I closed my eyes for a moment and just breathed. It was finally over. A moment later, Robin called and suggested that I come over for a relaxed evening coffee, but I mostly felt like being alone. I declined, but promised to reach out. Then I sat there pondering and reflecting. My life had completely changed in half a year. From being a happily married man in others' eyes to realizing that my marriage had been toxic and destructive for years. I was angry at myself for not standing my ground earlier, but I was also proud that I had finally done it. Some people have to hit rock bottom before they actually get up, I suppose. I called my mother and told her that the divorce was now formally final. She had been worried about me for a long time, but didn't know all the details. I heard relief in her voice when she said, "I hope you can move on now and find happiness." I laughed a bit awkwardly and replied, "I'm doing my best." Days went by and Linda continued to email, but I didn't respond. I had come so far and wouldn't let myself get sucked into any more drama. I knew she would probably accuse me of being cold or emotionless, but it didn't matter. She had exhausted her trust. I continued to organize my new apartment, decorating it to my own taste. I got some new hobbies, including starting to work out more actively again. I wanted to rebuild my self-esteem. The few friends I had left, those who weren't mutual with Linda, encouraged me. Additionally, I began spending more time with Robin and Emily, who invited me to barbecues, movie nights, and similar gatherings. They made sure I never had to feel lonely. Eventually, I met Anna again. We were at the same barbecue at Robin and Emily's house. We talked for a long time and really found a nice connection. I shared a bit more about my previous relationship. She listened without judging. She talked about her own divorce, and we could laugh about certain things while also supporting each other through what still felt heavy. I felt that there was actually a future for me, that I didn't have to be defined by Linda's demeaning comments or the failed marriage. It felt like an aha moment. The world was bigger than Linda's jabs and sarcasm. I wasn't doomed to constantly be humiliated. Time slowly but surely healed my wounds. Sometimes I could remember Linda's looks and words and feel how it stung in my chest with anger or sorrow, but it faded more and more. I took each day as it came, knowing that I was free and could choose my own life. And when I look back, I realized how oppressed I had actually been in the marriage. It's easy to get used to something that gradually worsens and think that it's normal, kind of like a frog slowly boiled on a stove. It doesn't feel anything until it's too late. I wish I had realized this earlier, but better late than never. Linda finally got fed up with hearing silence on the other end. She wrote one last email a day, about a year after I left her. It read something like, "I understand that you're not going to respond. I just wanted to say sorry for everything. I hope you're happy. I will always love you." I didn't know how sincere she was, but it didn't matter. I closed the email without responding. Not out of malice, but because I didn't need anything more from her. My life moved on. After that, I never heard from her again. I don't know what happened to her afterward. I guess she might have sold the house or stayed there on her own. Maybe she realized that her behavior wasn't defensible. Maybe she truly regretted it. It's not my business to know or care anymore. The person I am now is not the same Jonas who allowed himself to be walked over for years. I have grown from this painful experience. Time passed, and Anna and I finally began a relationship. It was slow and cautious because neither of us wanted to jump into something new that could go wrong. But we found joy, trust, and above all, respect for each other. We could talk about everything, and it felt like a tremendous relief not having to censor myself out of fear of being mocked. I realized that a relationship can be a source of security and happiness instead of anxiety and stress. Today, when I think back to that evening when I heard Linda talk about getting a lover, I remember it as the moment when the cup overflowed. All the pain that had built up over the years culminated in that moment. If she hadn't said it, maybe I would have endured even longer. But sooner or later, something similar would have happened anyway. In a way, I'm thankful it happened because it set me free. Of course, it's sad when a marriage ends, but when love is replaced by contempt and mockery, there isn't much left to salvage. The constant demeaning tone, the humiliating comments about my manhood, my finances, my way of being intimate, and how long I could endure, all slowly destroyed my self-love. When I finally broke free, it felt like I could breathe freely for the first time in a long while. And I've discovered that there are people like Anna, Robin, and Emily, and many more who wouldn't treat me that way, who see my worth and let me be myself. The divorce was long and drawn out, but it was worth every moment of struggle for my own well-being, for the realization that no one deserves to be humiliated by their own partner. I'm not bitter. I'm rather relieved and hopeful. Life is long, and there are many chances to meet new people and build new relationships. Now I also know what I will never tolerate again. I may not know everything about love, but I do know how important mutual respect is. Without it, love cannot survive. No matter how strong the attraction is or how much history you share, without respect, all joy and future hopes wither away. Today, I take nothing for granted, and I am humble in the relationship I have with Anna and in the friendships I receive from Robin and Emily. This was my journey from being a man who was mocked and humiliated daily by his wife to finally standing up for myself and taking the step into the unknown. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And even though life continues to present challenges and setbacks, I can handle them with dignity intact because I've learned my own worth. My name is Jonas, and this is my story.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.